if you were to ask an average person about the chances of there once being life on Mars, they'd probably say it was pretty unlikely. And even if life did exist, it would have died out eons ago. But what if I told you that we might have already found proof that Mars was once teeming with life, and not just any life, microbial life, very similar to bacteria here on Earth? Well, believe it or not, we may have done just that. It's just nobody seems to know about it. It all has to do with NASA's Viking missions to Mars in the mid-1970s. These groundbreaking missions successfully landed the first spacecraft on the Red Planet and sent back the first close-up images of the Martian surface. The landers were equipped with cameras, magnets, and a whole host of other instruments designed to analyze the planet's atmosphere, geology, and soil composition. And it was this last instrument that may have discovered evidence of Martian life. You see, one of the instruments on board the Viking Lander was a gas mass spectrometer, basically a device designed to identify organic molecules in soil samples. The idea was that if we could find any complex organic compounds, it would be a sign that the soil had once contained living things, since organic compounds are, as the name suggests, the building blocks of life here on Earth. During the mission, the Viking landers were to take soil samples from near their landing sites and feed them into this device to see what came out the other side. When the data from the gas chromatograph started coming back, scientists noticed something strange. There seemed to be a lot of unexplained peaks, meaning there were parts of the Martian soil sample that couldn't be identified by the scientists. Some of these unidentified compounds turned out to be methane, carbon dioxide, and other gases, which could be explained by the fact that the soil was, well, dirty. But there was still a large amount of unexplained data left over, and when the second and third samples came back with similar results, it became clear that something interesting was going on. Today, we know that there are other possible explanations for these mysterious peaks. For example, some could be explained by the way that the soil sample was sterilized before being packaged for launch. Others could have resulted from contamination during the sample collection process, and still others could have been produced by the interaction between the spacecraft and the Martian soil. But back in 1976, none of this was known. And while the scientists working on the Viking missions didn't jump to the conclusion that these unexplained peaks were evidence of life, they also didn't rule it out. In fact, one of the scientists involved in analyzing the data said that the evidence was consistent with the hypothesis that the samples contained material derived from living organisms. But despite this, the results were never officially released, and it wasn't until decades later that the data was even looked at again. So why was this data so easily dismissed? Why didn't these scientists follow up on such a promising lead? Well, there are a number of possible reasons. For one, the Viking landers had a very limited lifespan on the surface of Mars. They were only designed to last 90 days, but both landers ended up operating for much longer than that. As a result, the team was likely so focused on getting new and exciting data that they didn't have time to go back and analyze old data that didn't seem particularly important at the time. Additionally, there was likely a fair amount of skepticism about the possibility of life on Mars in the 1970s, and as a result, scientists may have been reluctant to jump to conclusions based on a single unexplained dataset. Finally, it's worth noting that there were other potential explanations for the data that were never fully explored, such as the possibility that the peaks were caused by contamination. But today, with renewed interest in the possibility of life on Mars, scientists are taking a second look at this old data, and new techniques allow for a more in-depth analysis of the samples. Some researchers believe that the unidentified compounds could be amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. Others think they could be lipids, which are a major component of cell membranes. Either way, there seems to be a lot of organic material in the Martian soil. Of course, it's important to remember that correlation does not equal causation. Just because we find organic compounds on Mars doesn't necessarily mean that they were produced by living things. But it does suggest that there could be life on Mars, or at least there could have been in the past. Now, unfortunately, due to budget constraints, NASA isn't planning on returning any Martian soil samples to Earth anytime soon, so it's unlikely that we'll be able to analyze the samples directly. But with new technology, we may be able to get another good look at our red planet's organic material without ever leaving Earth. If you enjoyed this quick dip into the intriguing evidence for life on Mars, be sure to check out the series, where we explore the many fascinating aspects of our solar system and beyond. Thanks for watching.